What's up, YouTube? I'm Brett from Rants or Us. As always, with me is my co-host here on Rants or Us, Lance, on audio. Say hi, Lance.
Hey guys.
As always, guys, if y'all enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. We're on the road to 1,000. We hope you guys will help us get there. All right, so this is our Walker episode 5 review. What did you think of the episode as a whole?
As a whole, I thought it was an okay episode. There wasn't anything just great about it, but there wasn't anything that I'm just like, this episode completely sucked.
I had some problems with some parts of it.
I had some problems with some parts of it, but not enough for me to be like, this was a horrible episode.
No, it wasn't a horrible episode. In fact, there was a lot of parts that I enjoyed. I'll tell you what kind of got me the worst, and really kind of made me have more of a downward trend when it comes to this episode, is the part where they don't give enough backstory for us to really understand what went on with this rodeo robbery thing. They gave some flashbacks, but it wasn't like flashbacks that was of any quality that much.
Well, to me, I got the story, from that, and that wasn't what bugged me the most about it. What bugged me the most about it is August's inability to comprehend how undercover works.
That has been one thing that has been a constant throughout this show. These teenage children do not understand reality in any form or fashion.
Well, like I said, Stella does not drive me crazy about it. August drives me absolutely nuts.
And see, it was Stella for me at the very beginning. Like, it was Stella that was the one that just irked me to no extreme, because she was, she was just complaining, I don't understand why you're here. Well, because I'm a cop, or I'm a Texas Ranger, and I'm undercover. Well, I don't know why you got to be undercover, because I'm flipping Texas Ranger.
Because that's my flipping job, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get that too, but I kind of understood where she was coming from to an extent. But August just being like, oh, this is all stuff from when Dad was undercover. Let me just dig through here and text people.
I did not understand that.
And then to show up at a undercover sting like, hey, you're a piece of crap because you're really still involved in all this, blah, blah, blah. That's his job. He's trying to get these people out of town before they find out who he really is and come after his kids. And you just can't understand that. And you're like 15. I mean, for me, it takes away from the show majorly, just because that's just so stupidly, or that's not even a word, but it's dumb. Unrealistic. It's very unrealistic. Like, it's just not believable, and I feel like that takes away from the show because of that. So if I was gonna pick anything to make this episode go on my shit list, it would be that storyline.
That was bad, but that's been a constant bad throughout this season, really. There hasn't. Let me just put it this way: hasn't been that many good plot points when it comes to his kids. At least not in my opinion. I kind of feel like.
And then the ones that are even slightly interesting, they just drop and don't even talk about it yet. And I thought there was going to be a bigger deal about Stella meeting that boy and finding out that his dad was in prison. I thought that was going to have something either directly to do with her mom dying or have something to do with Walker. And they just kind of went mute on that when they went to this episode 5.
Okay, what about even the woman that's at the bar? That was Emily.
Yeah, she's been absent since Hoyt.
Well, Gary, I think was her name, or Jerry, or something like that.
I think it's Jerry, but because I think it's like short for Geraldine. Yeah. But she's been off that show ever since the whole thing about her and Hoyt being together.
Yeah, and I thought it was going to be something even with Mickey and her, and then it was nothing.
Yeah, because of the way they kind of sent some shade at each other towards the end of that episode.
or what even about Walker's mom with the affair? What about
Oh
any of
yeah,
that? Like none of that is
see
so strong.
that is a problem I've had with the show throughout the season. And when it first started, I was a huge supporter. Like I was excited for every episode, but here lately, these last few episodes have really kind of drowned me out because
Yeah, I know
I
I
just
know
don't
what
like
you.
the way they just drop things and then they kind of just go back to it kind of subtly. And
Yeah, I feel like they don't. I feel like they speak of things, but then they don't really pan it out very much. Like I
yeah,
feel like
and because it's kind of like me and you've talked multiple times about, like, when we first heard about the plot line,
mhm.
we were like, well, I hope they don't get stuck on the whole dead wife thing too much. But then
Mhm.
to just like not even bring it up, but for maybe like a little 5 minute dialogue at the end of every episode is kind of
It's stupid. I mean, it's really stupid. It's like okay, we've been both of us have been watching this show, WandaVision. WandaVision is
mhm.
like every scene means something in some form or fashion. It's going to set up
Now
something
I will
later
say
on,
this:
but
what
but
I
it feels like
love so
Walker is the polar
much.
opposite of that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, and what I love about the whole WandaVision show so much is the fact that every scene, not every episode, but every scene of that show is put there to make you think, make you try to figure this out.
Yeah.
And I don't get that excitement like that with Walker. There's just not a whole lot to try to figure out
No.
because I'm like, why am I going to bother trying to figure something out? They're probably not even going to talk about it next week.
Well, I thought, okay, at least with the Emily thing, I thought, and this is kind of where I've been with this whole season. I felt like I enjoyed the individual stories that, go with it. The bad guy of the week. I've enjoyed that. I just wish that maybe some of those bad guys, or even somebody like a Hoyt when he come onto the scene, I wish that somehow that would have tied back to Emily to a certain extent.
And I think it still might at some point,
I
but
hope it does.
I don't think they want to put all their eggs into one basket this early in the season. I think as we get closer to the finale, which is, I don't know how many episodes are in this season, but as we get closer to the finale, I hope that more things start to tie in. But
Yeah.
I feel like they're afraid to tie in too much at this point because they don't want to overdo it and then not have anything to leave us hanging
Hey,
at the end of the season,
you want to know what I think it is, Lance? I think this show feels like a show that has been rewrote. It's like they've
Well,
they've
I,
started. It's
I,
like the plot points that they originally was going to go with. It's like they changed it at the last minute. That's the way it feels to me, at least. It feels
I
like
definitely could feel that too, and I think that's kind of what happens. Not only does it feel like it got changed, but to
mhm.
me, it also feels like this show was rushed.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. I'll agree
with
with you on that.
everything going on these last, year and then a little bit this year, they were just kind of like, we got to get something out here. We got to get something rolling.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it was rushed. And so it's kind of like an unfinished product at this point, and they're just trying to figure out how to do this to
That's,
keep it going. And that's sad because you're not even halfway through your first season.
Yeah, and and to me, I agree with you 100% on that. It just feels like a show that if it was just put together a little bit better, it really could be something special. I think.
Hey,
Um,
I agree with that. And
but I've
I'm a
been saying
big,
that every week, and I keep waiting for it to put it
but
together, and it never seems to
and
do it.
I see that potential, but I'm gonna go ahead and say this. I think a part of the Walker show as a whole
Mhm.
is it being on CW. Like if it was on CBS or Fox or one of those local main channels,
Mhm.
I think it would have been more better writing.
I think it would. Oh,
Yeah,
definitely, definitely. I think the CW is known for poor writing. Look at anything when it comes to the Arrowverse, and I
I mean,
love the Arrowverse, but still,
I
it's
think
bad
they
writing.
hit. I think they hit rare gems. Like
Yeah,
they hit one with Supernatural. They hit one with let's say Smallville. Even they
yeah,
have hit these gems, But it's rare that they come out with a show on CW and you're like, this show's built to last.
Yeah. Yes, I'll actually agree with you on that one. I mean, because I feel like a lot of these shows, they are, we get into them as fans. But then when you go back and you look back on it, you're like, oh man, did this really have good writing? Like I feel like Supernatural was one of the few shows that was on the CW that actually I could say had good writing. There was some filler episodes throughout that that I didn't really
I
understand what
mean,
they had there. But overall, I mean, when you go for 15 seasons, you're gonna have not everything's gonna be perfect. But I feel
yeah,
like
and I
that's
mean,
the only one
I
that's actually been
started to
almost good.
notice, that with the CW a lot lately. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if I go back and I look at things, like if I was to go back and compare, let's say, All American
Mm-hmm.
as a show compared to like Friday Night Lights, the TV series,
It's no
you're like,
comparison.
this show sucks. And I don't know for sure, but I don't know what network Friday Night Lights actually came on. I'd have to look into that. But I thought it was CW. It might not have been. But I'm just saying, like, I've noticed a lot lately that
Yeah,
shows just aren't what they used to be. Period.
yeah, they're
Almost
not.
no matter what network you look at, it's just they don't build these shows
No,
to last
no.
anymore. And it's like, I'm just gonna throw this out here, collect my check, cancel the show, whatever. We'll put something else in this slot.
Yeah, we'll make like a
And
spin-off of it. Something. Yeah, I
so
feel that way.
I
I feel that way with a lot
and
of
I just feel
movies
like
now too.
CW was bad about it. So
Yeah. Well, it's like you said, the CW shows really aren't built to last. They're built to throw out there, and it's like something with DC. You know that anything that's got a DC superhero in it is going to
I
last
mean,
to a certain
yeah,
extent.
and
But but
there's
that was
shows
an
from the
average show anymore.
CW. There's shows from the CW that are just, especially now, that aren't built to last, and even previously they were. Even if you didn't necessarily, even if that's not a show you
Yeah.
necessarily would watch or it was your thing, there was shows on the CW that were, you could tell, were built to last. One Tree
Yeah.
Hill was a show that was built to
Yeah.
last.
Yeah.
I know not everybody likes that show, which is fine, but it was built to last. I mean, it lasted 9 seasons.
Yeah.
Smallville, 10
Yes.
seasons. Supernatural, 16, 15, 16.
One Tree Hill. When you brought up One Tree Hill, yes, I remember you tried to get me when we were teenagers to get
Yeah.
into One Tree Hill, and I could never get into it.
I
But
think
it's not. But I look back on it now, and I agree with you. That was a show that was legit. It just
Yeah,
wasn't for
and
me.
my big attraction to it was because it was just like the only TV show that was built
Yeah,
around basketball.
that was
So
before
that was,
Friday Night Lights. That was for any of these.
well,
Like,
you see
yeah,
a lot of shows about
yeah,
football. You see a lot of shows about even baseball, but basketball is one of those sports
yeah,
that's kind of left off with the TV
yeah,
genres,
yeah. It is.
and so coming from a small school where all we had was basketball, that drew me in because it was
Yeah,
basketball. But
yeah. I mean,
uh,
but
so I get that feel with Walker is basically, let me get back to that, is I like the show and
mhm.
I could see it lasting 4 or 5 seasons, but I still don't believe that is a show that is built to last.
I don't see it lasting that long, Lance. I see this show getting canceled after probably about the second season.
I say three
If
or
it
four
doesn't change,
max.
if it doesn't change,
I say 3 or 4 max,
because
and so
they're going to lose.
when I talk about shows that are built to last, you got to at least be able to go 6, 7
Yeah,
seasons.
but look at Batwoman. Batwoman's another show on the CW that literally YouTubers, like middle range YouTubers, get more viewers on any given day than
Than what the
what
actual show does.
Batwoman
And
does,
that's
and that's not even a joke. That's the
I feel
honest
like,
truth.
and
So I
I'll tell
mean,
you
they get
this,
that on.
I feel like, we're on CW right now, but I feel like
Yeah,
CW drops the ball a lot. They had some
yeah,
potential shows that I
yeah.
felt they could have done really good with, and they just don't. Like Swamp Thing, what, it lasted a pilot.
Yeah, did it even make it to that? I don't
Yeah, I think
even.
the pilot's on the CW app, but I mean,
Like I
I'm
kind of,
like,
I just kind of feel
it
like, I feel like
that I feel
maybe
like
they
that
wouldn't
show could have
cancel it
been
because of
they
Jared
could have
Padalecki.
done.
That's the only other reason. It's not
Yeah, I
because
thought
of the show.
that Swamp Thing could have been a show that could have been a really good thing on the
Yeah.
CW, but they just kind of dropped the ball on it. Like,
Well, I mean, the only reason with Walker that I would say that the show wouldn't get canceled at the second season, if it keeps continuing this trend, is is because
well, you're
is
gonna get your
because Jared
views just off
Padalecki's
of
a part
Jared.
of it.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. You go get your views just off of Jared
Yeah,
Padalecki's name
yeah.
alone. So, yeah, I mean, it's gonna stay alive for a little while. So don't get me wrong on that. But
I say
I
bring
just,
back Supernatural.
you know, a few weeks ago, I was against that thought when we did those other videos. But the further I get into this Walker, is more I'm like, okay, screw this. Don't even bring Jensen Ackles on this show because at that point, all I'm gonna do is see
I
why'd y'all
know.
cancel
I
Supernatural, like,
know. I
you
know.
know.
I gotta feel that way too.
So I do agree with you on that.
But I will say, real quick, I do want to mention this with Mickey. Mickey has been, to me, one of the worst characters on this show, and I've really been disappointed with it because I do love the actress that plays her. But I thought this episode she did a pretty good job.
I
Um,
actually in this episode, she was one of my favorite characters.
yes, same here. I actually really enjoyed Lindsay Morgan on this one. So I thought she did a fabulous job. But there was too many. To me, the biggest problem to me was I enjoyed the the backstory and the flashbacks, but I felt like there wasn't enough to give it context for me to care what's going on or to
See,
even
I
really
thought
get what's going on.
I did not expect that with you. I expected the flashbacks to be something that completely killed you on this because I just know how you are with
See, I
flashbacks. Like,
almost would have been, yeah, but I would have almost been kind of cool if the whole episode was nothing but a flashback. I would have kind of enjoyed that to
yeah,
a
I
certain
see.
extent.
I don't mind flashback episodes, but these flashing back and forth kind of bug me. Like, if you're gonna do a flashback episode, just keep it in that
Mm-hmm.
timeline and do the whole episode that way.
Yeah,
Don't jump. But
that,
I don't much care for the jumping back and forth thing. That I got over that whole theory of this makes a good TV show of jumping back and forth with Arrow.
yeah, I was about to say
Like
Arrow.
at first, I thought that was pretty cool, because not a lot of shows were doing it then.
Now every
But
show does it.
now every show does it so much that you're like, okay,
It's like they always
uh,
start in the middle or the end now, and then they
yeah.
work their way back. Not
I
for
always
it.
thought that Arrow would have been a much better show if maybe they had started
Mm-hmm.
season one with him going on the yacht and sinking and getting stranded on the island and
Mm-hmm.
doing all of that story right then, and then jump to him getting taken
Yeah.
off the island. But to me,
Because
with
you would have
some of
got to see
the
the progression of the character a lot
yeah,
better.
but to me, with some of the issues with Arrow with the flashback was like they added ideas in between these flashbacks, and they went and did more flashbacks, and
Yes.
that was just, to me, that was stupid. Like, you
Well,
should have just kept to the story and went with it.
yes. Yes.
But I'm getting off topic here.
Well,
But
see,
that goes back to me hating on CW
yeah.
to an extent. Like,
But when it does come to Walker though, like I felt like this episode, if they would have just given a little bit more context in the flashback, maybe I would have cared a little bit more. I really wanted to see more with, I think her name was Twyla and Cordell. Like, I would have loved to
yeah,
see more about that because it did seem like he did really care about her. I mean,
I
he
do
even kind of
think he
made
did.
that thing at the end.
I think that he did, but I don't think he was in love with her, but I think he actually cared about her.
Yeah,
Like,
I
I
do too.
think that's why he was trying to keep her out of trouble and hoping that she would stay away from this type of life after their last run in. But
I think I'll be honest with you. I really think that it would have been successful if Mickey hadn't got involved in it. Because
yeah,
once Mickey got involved, I think she kind of was like, "Ooh, you didn't tell me about this person, or you haven't told me about
yeah,
this
or
part of
what
it."
exactly, when they were, they're undercover, so they're acting like they're something that they're not. So
Yeah,
she's like, what is y'all's relationship here? Why
yeah.
did you bring her in on this?
So the question of the day is, do you think Cordell Walker is a dirty cop? Because they brought in the Hoyt thing. And he was a
Ah,
part of the bank robbers, I guess. I don't know. Like, I mean,
that to me was kind of questionable there. I think that I think that almost every cop can be considered a dirty cop when they're undercover. Like every
Yeah,
cop that goes
and that's
undercover
the
does
truth.
things that is against the badge. I mean, they
Yes.
have to
Yeah.
survive.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like what he did while he was undercover was more survival than him being dirty. Now, if he had let them get away, like, hey, I'm gonna save all of you from then that's one thing. That's one thing to be like, yeah, he was dirty. So that's kind of I'm kind of hit and miss when it comes to that because he was undercover, and I feel like I said, every cop that works undercover can be considered dirty for some of their actions that they do
Yeah.
because they're trying to survive. They got
Yeah,
to
they got to
finish this,
walk that thin line between.
Yeah, and it's a very thin line,
Yeah.
and it's I think a lot of times especially the way they portray it through Hollywood, a
Yeah.
lot of times these cops are easy. It's very easy to get flip flopped. It's very easy to cross that thin line.
Well, when you spend so much time in this realm, eventually, you become a part of it. And I think
Yeah, I
that's
mean, think
where a
about
lot of
think
people
think
struggle with that.
about and like I said, as it's portrayed through Hollywood, think
Yes.
about how many times you saw a cop go undercover and then flip sides, like
Yeah.
Paul Walker in the Fast and the Furious. It happens in
Yeah.
almost every show where a cop is undercover. He gets to know these people and actually,
Yeah.
becomes their friends, and he flips. Keanu Reeves in Point Blank.
Yeah. But what about?
I mean,
I have to ask you this real quick when it comes to this. Liam. Okay, Liam knew all about all the undercover stuff. He was actually
Liam
working with
bothers me.
Walker.
Liam bothers me so much in almost every episode. Um, it
He
drives
is
me
just.
crazy that he was so hands on with this case. Knew
Mm-hmm.
what the hell Walker was dealing with. Knew what he was doing. It was like, I'm gonna take your kids.
Yeah, I know. Like I still haven't got over that part. Before then, I would argue with you. I'd be like, I like Liam, and then after that, I was like, you know what? Screw Liam. Like,
Yeah, I
you're
mean,
literally there with him, knowing what was going on, and you still look at him.
as a parent, that's something I find very
Yeah,
hard to just be like,
yeah.
oh, he
Same
was
here,
doing
same
what was
here.
best for the kids. I mean, were you really? Because you knew what he was doing, you knew what was going on, you knew he was dirty,
Mm-hmm.
but yet you were going to take his kids from
Yeah.
him.
So I think overall, I think when it comes to this episode, I think I think we maybe kind of agree maybe that they should have maybe given a little bit more context to what had gone on. I
Yeah.
mean, do you kind of agree with
See,
that?
with me, I got enough of the backstory from the
You did.
flashbacks where
Oh, fair enough.
you
Oh,
wanted a little bit more,
yeah.
uh,
And
but
another thing is I think we both agreed that August was terrible.
yeah, we
Uh,
definitely agree with that one.
that
Like,
that Mickey was actually pretty decent this episode.
yeah,
I didn't have a problem. I'm kind of getting a little bit sick and tired of Liam coming in about something about Emily at the very end.
yeah,
Maybe talk about it somewhere in the middle a little bit. I mean,
or
that'd be
like
nice.
at least like give us some more follow up information on what he's actually
Yeah.
getting his point across. Like, what's he trying to say? Is he trying to say the captain is dirty, or is he trying
Yeah.
to be like, hey, me and you need to work on this and figure out what's wrong with this murder before we bring my brother in it?
And see, I kind of
Or
feel like that's shady in a way because it's
I
like
do
that was his
feel like
wife.
that is shady. I do feel like that's shady, but at the same time, they don't want to get him riled up if there's nothing there.
Yeah,
So
and then and
I get that too. For in that situation, I see both sides as what.
yeah, and fair enough on that one. But I would go so far to say, I feel like that they could do a little bit. I feel like they just keep making the exact same mistakes
Now,
of not of this choppy storytelling, bad dialogue, really terrible things when it comes to the kids. Not it seems like they're out of place. They don't really understand how the real world works a little bit for their ages. I feel like there's so
so
many little things in there that just went bad this episode.
do we both agree that this would be a stronger show on a different network?
Yes. By far, agree. If this was on CBS, ABC, NBC, any of these other things, I mean, it don't even have to be
Because
something
when they did the show,
HBO
when they
Max. It
did,
could have just been on those, and it would have been a
yeah,
stronger show
that's what I'm
by
saying. Because
far.
I'm not saying the show is not better than the Walker previously,
Yeah,
but even that one was on a show like CBS, and I felt like they
yeah.
could really do some things with cases that they're not allowed to do with CW.
I feel like they have better writers
Yeah.
because they're used to doing these serious cop shows, and I think there is so much potential with Walker. I really
Oh,
believe
it's
this.
got
I've
a
said
lot of
this from the very
potential, and
beginning.
I'm
There's
not.
potential, but I feel like it's almost kind of like what we were always as Cowboys fans talking about Morris Claiborne, where everybody was like
The
potential,
word
potential,
potential can
potential,
only
and five
save
years
you
down the
for
road,
so
still
long.
potential, huh?
Yeah, the word potential can only save you for so long.
Yeah,
But I do feel like the show has potential, and I'm not ready to just write it off
no,
just
I'm
yet.
not either. I'm actually
There,
not
there,
either.
there's a lot of changes that needs to be made and things that they need to fix, and maybe they will as the show goes along.
Yeah,
This is like I know they call the first episode a pilot episode, but this is a pilot season.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
they got time to turn this around.
I think so too. So what would you rate this episode?
For me, I'm gonna say a 6.
I'd say about a 6. When I first watched it, I would have said probably about a 7, 7.5. But just us even talking about it and me just kind
And
of
see, that's the thing. When you sit
thinking about it,
down
I'm
with
like,
someone
oh, that's
else,
definitely a 6. Like it's
yeah,
definitely a
yeah,
6.
that's the thing. When you sit down with someone else and you start seeing their
Yeah,
point of view or hearing their point of view, it
yeah,
starts to kind of change the way you see things
yeah,
to an
yeah.
extent. I'm not
For the
saying you're
worst
so
in this one.
weak-minded that I'm gonna point something out and you're gonna be like, "Oh crap, yeah,
No,
this
but
show
when
sucks."
it's
But
like it's like take I'm a huge Star Wars fan. It's like watching the Rise of Skywalker. When I watched the Rise of Skywalker, as soon as it got done, I was like, "This is a great." This was, I mean, it wasn't great, but it was good, and so I was happy with it. And then, like 10 minutes later, I started dwelling on it, and I'm like, "Ooh,
but
this was the worst one ever."
the thing about Rise of Skywalker that made me go like, "Oh, this one was really good." Well, I'm saying, hear me out. You get what I'm saying. I don't think that show was good, but the reason I feel like that we were like this one's probably one of the best in the new trilogy is because it came right after the Last Jedi.
Yeah, I mean, where the last
Like,
one is like probably one of the worst movies of all time. Not just Star Wars, just it was just a bad movie. Ryan Johnson had done so bad on it that like literally anything could have been better after that. Like you could have had a blank wall for like 2 hours and it's still been better.
but with it following the Last Jedi, made it go, oh, this
Yes.
one was 10 times better than that.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's why we think it's so good is
Yeah.
because the Last Jedi was just so
And
terrible.
again, the same thing I think happens with Walker, with us, with Jared Padalecki. We're such supernatural fans. We come in here having big expectations for Jared Padalecki
I
and
think a
Walker.
lot of people had too big of
Yes,
expectations,
and I think
and
maybe I'm one of them to a certain
I
extent.
definitely think you are more
Yes.
than me because like most of the time I'm like I liked it, and
Mm-hmm.
you're like oh no it was horrible,
Yeah.
and I think that's part of it is like your expectation for the show was higher than what mine
And
was.
I think Jared
So
Padal.
you get a bigger disappointment, and so
Yeah.
that makes you go, I don't really like this show
Yeah.
because
It's
and
just yeah
more than
because
what
of that.
happens with me. So
I do feel like the only constant in this is Jared Padalecki. I does feel like he's done the best that he could.
I mean,
I
he's a
do
strong
really do.
actor, like, and I
Yeah,
knew
he's a
that
great one.
going in. I knew
Yeah.
that going in, and even when they tried to make Mickey outshine Cordell, Jared Padalecki's still a stronger actor than what she is an actress.
Oh,
So
definitely, definitely.
I'm like, he's still the star. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, it's called Walker for a reason,
yeah. But
But
overall, I mean, I would say this episode was
I mean, it
kind of
wasn't
middle of the
bad.
road for me.
It wasn't bad. It just they. I hope they start pulling some things together that
I do
really
too.
make this show stand out. I hope they do.
I do too. So if you're hearing this, CW, You know,
Get your
you're
shit
on
together.
you got something there, but you just got to unpolish. I mean, you got to polish it up a little bit, and this could be
Well,
really a
I
mainstay for
mean,
the CW.
and this is with anything. Don't overthink things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I
Yeah.
feel like that's what happens with a lot of these TV shows. The showrunners are overthinking what's acceptable and what's not
Yeah.
acceptable, or
Yes.
where should we go here, where shouldn't we go,
Yes.
what do we avoid and what don't we avoid, and they overthink things and it really screws them up.
I think they were. Yeah, I think they spend more time trying to worry about if something's going to be controversial and less time about trying to make good storylines to a certain extent, or to fill in some of the blanks with a lot of things. But you see that across the board on TV
On
and in movies.
everything, TV,
Yeah.
movies, even video games and
Yes.
stuff now. I mean,
Yes.
so that's just
Yeah. That's just
everywhere,
life
and
now.
it's just
2021.
it's yeah.
Yeah.
And we're in 2021. We just got to figure, deal with it. But
Yeah.
I think that if this show was done maybe 10 years ago,
I
it'd be
think
a
it.
lot better.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. But on that, I guess we can go ahead and leave it on that one.
I'll leave that up
Overall,
to
it's
the
kind of middle of the
viewers.
road for me, but and I think it was for you too. This episode.
Yeah. It wasn't one of my favorites so far,
No,
but
no, it
it
wasn't.
wasn't like my least favorite either.
No, it
So
wasn't. It wasn't. It's same with me. Same with me. But as always, guys, thank y'all for watching, and y'all take care.